Okay, let's shift to MILABs, and can you basically describe to me what is going on, and then maybe just quickly tie it into how much of this consciousness technology have they developed, or how far are they along?
Okay, that's a good question. Boy, it's a lot to cover. But let me start with what the last thing you just asked first. The consciousness part, I think, is something they've always been interested in. Obviously, from just something as basic as the history of the remote viewing program, the history of MK Ultra, that there's been this involvement in the understanding of conscious being non-locale, being not affected by an environment or location, being able to interact with something on somewhere else, either forward or backward in time or on another place on the planet. I think that those doing parapsychology lab work have known this now for a while, and I think in the covert parapsychology research area, the sky's the limit with how far they've taken it. I think they've absolutely tried to weaponize it, and maybe some degree have. So that's been there. And again, we know this, you know, in the most basic a way from the history of the remote viewing program, the military's remote viewing program, just as an example. But there was more than that. They were looking into other things, not just the clairvoyant aspect like remote viewing, but they were getting into being able to manipulate matter with the mind, being able to influence behavior in other people. You know, the infamous men who stare at goats, you know, being able to stop a heart or something. They were looking into other uses of psi functioning other than just the remote viewing clairvoyance. And so they've had an interest that's been being developed covertly now probably for many years. Because of abductees having that natural ability, and because of abductions happening genetically in a family, and possibly the traits genetically being passed on for psychic functioning, for consciousness functioning abilities, that if that's handed down in families, they've looked at that genetically as well. And one thing that's come up consistently in the MILAB events, again, MILAB just being MIL for military and AB for abduction, which now has just come to mean alien abductees that have had covert human interest in their story, in their experiences, in them personally, and etc. And so that those abductees now are sometimes tested for their psychic abilities and psi functioning abilities by these covert human agency personnel. And sometimes it's in an abduction event where sometimes those people are picked up, maybe drugged, maybe have some form of mind control, and are abducted by humans, not just aliens. Some of these events involve humans and aliens together. Some of them involve mostly aliens, but with humans monitoring what's going on. And some of these events are purely just, you know, humans with no aliens involved. So in all the above. And I know that gets confusing, but it's common in these events to have a human experience where you are an abductee abducted by human beings, usually military personnel, not always, but mostly, and yet to be taken to an underground base or some military facility or something and see an alien present. That's very common in these experiences. And then you can be abducted by aliens, be on board a ship, but have a covert human person there that seems to be somehow involved or monitoring. And of course, that means we're interacting with them in the covert world. Those that manage the UFO subject are involved directly with multiple ET races. I think there's so many pieces of evidence that support that now, and so many insiders saying that, and certainly it's been true all along in the MILAB scenarios. And and again, the abductees are questioned often about the consciousness interface with the technology, the consciousness interface, the psi functioning with the ETs, the abductees' own natural ability. They're tested genetically for probably looking at a multitude of things. You guys, I know, I realize my camera picture is just horrible here. I'm having a camera problem. I think you guys can hear me. Okay, yeah, yay.
Okay.
I got lucky. Okay. Okay.
You were talking
editing there. We came back and
yeah, you were talking about the MILAB experience and basically what goes on. Is this still going on today? Is it picked up, or is there a period of time when?
Yeah, no, it's still going on. It's been going on for a long time. I'm getting more cases of it. If that means it's increasing, maybe it is. Or maybe it's just abductees know more about it now and are more open to sharing and talking about whether they've had something happen. Now, which takes me to the first part of your question. So I talked about that, yes, they're interrogating people about psychic and psi abilities and consciousness, and how the ETs do it, how the abductee does it. They're testing the abductee for their natural abilities, and then they're also questioning them about it. And like I said, testing them. It's like maybe if you're particularly gifted in this way, that you get recruited into black ops or covert programs. If you have ability to communicate with the ETs, if you are comfortable communicating with them, you're able to do that telepathy with the ETs, then you could be recruited into covert programs. And then if you have high-level psi functioning, whether that's the remote viewing or psychokinesis or telekinesis, telepathy, all the above, manipulating matter, which all those things loosely translate in case you're that familiar with the terminology, manipulating matter with your mind, moving matter with your mind, levitating matter with your mind, like I said, moving, affecting it, and those kind of abilities, you may get recruited into some programs. And so some MILAB cases, some abductees find themselves being used in covert programs. And some of those are in an abduction-related scenario where during an abduction event, they're used in some way. I have had that happen, and many other people. Some people actually in, I want to say like real time in life, get recruited into programs and ended up either being approached to get recruited and maybe said no, or maybe they were looked into for the possibility of being recruited, and then those people, the covert people recruiting them, decided for whatever reason not to. I've had cases of that. And then some people have actually been used in that capacity with full knowledge, recruited. Often these are people that are also in the military. And then you have a crossover into what's called this super soldier program. But some people do get recruited out of the military because if you have these abilities and you're in the military, there's plausible deniability in using you in a covert program as opposed to a civilian where there are security issues. But again, some people just in the civilian environment are recruited into these programs. So that can happen too. And I've met people on all different levels of involvement with this. And but getting back to the basic MILAB, again, the first part of your question was, usually MILABs start with low-grade harassment and surveillance of an abductee. This is the infamous black helicopters, having your phone monitored or tapped, having your computer messed with, being watched, being followed, and then it can ramp up. There's many, many layers. It can go from basic where they're checking into you and wondering if you're a person of interest, or they think you might be, and then it can end. They might just, for whatever reason, drop an interest in you right then and there. But then it can grow to being befriended by insider types. One abductee called these minders, you know, when you have these insider intelligence types showing interest in you. You can be asked to go through tests that are paranormal or psychic in nature. You can be asked to give blood or other DNA samples by these individuals, and sometimes they're just keeping tabs on you. Sometimes they're just getting to know you and keeping tabs in case you could be useful to them at a future date. Who knows? You know, there could be a variety of reasons that they have an interest in somebody. Their involvement in the UFO community and you know, etc. There can be many things. So abductees will get befriended by guys. Then there's, of course, the abduction event where you can be abducted by either ETs or humans and have one or the other present, or have a purely abduction at the hand of humans event. And then, but it doesn't just end there. It's then manipulating your life. You can end up being involved in mind control programs. They can end up recruiting you eventually, as I was saying before, into some more advanced programs. So there's all different levels, and some abductees only experience level 1, and some people, you know, I would say, I kind of joked in the past that there's a 1 to 10 scale of, you know, recruitment into programs being 10, and full-blown super soldiers, you know, and used in ET wars and secret space program and everything, you know, that's 10. And 1 is low grade, you know, they're monitoring your phone and your computer and everything in between. So if there's 10 levels, I've always said I'm like a 5 or 6. I'm probably about a 6. I know people who've had less and then it stopped, and I certainly know and have worked with cases that have had it in the advanced levels and you know, and been recruited into programs and everything, when that's not happened to me. But I do have minder events I am kept track of. I have been repeatedly on and off for 30 years or more, you know, and I have had what I feel are about 9 abductions at the hands of humans that I'm aware of. There could be more that I'm unaware of. Some of those involve other people. Thank God I've got witnesses and other abductees involved with me to help me go, okay, that, you know, there's the evidence for some of those experiences, and other forms of evidence and physical evidence and whatnot. But I've had a variety of those events. But again, and I've worked with so many abductees. I've interviewed so many abductees about their own experiences with it, and know that there's this, sorry, I was just distracted by something. Sorry about that. Sorry. I know there's this delay, and I can't, if I look at my own picture, the delay's messing me. I just got to look at you and think about what I'm saying, you know. And anyways, so it's a complicated subject, I understand. And just because you have harassment surveillance doesn't mean you're going to go further down that road into all the other types of experiences. But some people do, and they get really full-blown and really mess with, and they can manipulate and control your life and situations in your life, and you know, and a lot of mind control involved, and it's very, very difficult for people at that level. I'm grateful that I haven't had more, you know, and for whatever reason, though, I am kept tabs on, and I think they're more curious. What am I going to do with this? What am I saying about it?
Yeah.
You know, by being my friend, they keep tabs of what I'm doing, and you know, Am I saying something they don't want me to? Whatever. I mean, I've never been told, well, no, I take that back. I was going to say, I've never been told don't say anything. Yes, I have. I've had, in my military abduction, I had a gun put to my head and said,
hang on, we got a dog here.
no problem.
Hang on. Come on, come here. Come here. Come here. Okay.
But I want to get back to something you said earlier, and I think part of their interest in the DNA of the abductees gets into that there may be a DNA. Are we okay?
Yep.
Okay, you just got a friend. Hi, friend. What's your friend's name?
There he is. Okay.
What?
That's Magic.
Magic. Hi, Magic.
Yeah, he's the guard dog here.
Cute.
Okay.
Cute dog. Okay, so for the same reason that the ETs are interested in our DNA, I do believe that there's a direct DNA relationship to consciousness and to psi functioning abilities. Conscious is kind of the wrong word. I mean, consciousness just means, mental processing, okay. But maybe it's more the psi functioning, and that there's an interest in that, in abilities. There's an interest in that DNA. With the ETs, obviously, they're studying a lineage, genetic lineage in a family. So obviously, they're studying a DNA history, and obviously the manipulation of that DNA over time. And again, as I said earlier, I do strongly feel that that is because the ETs are enhancing our consciousness and bringing a new DNA, a new consciousness in, so we are able to eventually get to that point where we interact with them in a common kind of scenario, a post-disclosure, many years post-disclosure scenario of having regular interaction with alien races. We already have it, but an open interaction in society. Okay, so I think they're bringing us and speeding us up to bring us to that point, to force us, whatever we're not evolving enough on our own to get there, they need to do it. I think they find humans very problematic. I think we're, we come off as angry, spoiled children, and we're quick to throw rocks at each other, and I think they don't want us taking that into space. And if these beings have been around for thousands, let alone millions of years, more than us, and they've learned a few things, and their consciousness has evolved, and maybe they've been helped, maybe other beings help them. This could be, they help everybody, at every level, and it could be they're just saying, okay, well, this group is kind of annoying, and maybe we need to make them less annoying. And that could be something that they've been doing for a long, long period. It gets into the whole ancient alien scenario, where I think there's evidence that they've been doing this from the get-go, that we could be their genetic experiment, without a doubt. And that at least they've come in and tweaked us, and it could be those, quote, missing links, could be leaps in development that we've been enhanced by them. And so I think the modern abduction, phenomena is just the continuation of a program that's been around from the beginning of time. And
how many?
And I think the consciousness, just to say real quick, sorry to cut you off, but I think the consciousness is now what they're increasing in us, and definitely in the MILAB events, the interrogators ask when you have the interrogation part of it, when he gets that far along, the interrogators want to know. They test you on your psi abilities. They want to know about your ability to do the telepathy. What makes you able to do that? Have you been affected genetically by the ETs? Have you been tweaked by the ETs? Are you a hybrid? you know. And then what do you know about the technology? And the technology, getting back to how we started this conversation, is all about the consciousness. It's to fly a ship, you remote view, you think where it's going, you interact with the technology emotionally. The ship itself, at least the propulsion systems that they showed me, they tune the ship into different vibrational fields, and then that ship, and you're going to love what I'm about to say here, Grant, that ship, the middle column, when they attune that vibrational field, the whole toroidal field embracing the ship then slides interdimensionally through a portal, you know, to where they're going. Wow. And by creating a portal, it creates that in that it slides interdimensionally, like through an envelope to where they're going. Wow. And if people are familiar with the things that Lazar said over the years, I think they're going to realize a lot of this matches. Yes, I'm not talking about element 115. I'm talking about magnetic propulsion, electromagnetic, gravitic, you know, system. But it could just be I was shown something a little more advanced than what he was, or, you know, what he was given to work on. And I think they may have more than one way of accomplishing this. And it could be that the energy that I saw as far as electricity generated on board to rotate the field in the coils of the magnet, you know, I got the sense that the magnetic field gave off an electricity, and then they just channeled that electricity and fed it back into the system. So it's a contained. Whoops. I put my foot on the desk and moved it. Sorry. Luckily my camera didn't go out.
You're still doing it.
I know. I was like, oh my God, I'm afraid to move it. But sorry everybody for the technical problems. But so anyway, so in that system, the way it fed itself by channeling electricity off, channeling it back into it, I think it was a self-contained, yes, free energy, self-generating. By increasing the magnetic field, it produced an electrical charge. And I don't know that I know everything about it. That was my understanding with what they showed me back then. Maybe there's also some additional thing creating electricity or creating power that they then use, like a battery, you know, and that they're then using in some way. I can't say they're not, or maybe they're just feeding it off the ethers, all a Tesla, you know, kind of idea of getting it from the ethers and intensifying it. And so, you know, I don't know everything by any means. All I know is what they showed me, and it was how they generated the gravity, how they generated lift, how they created the toroid, how they attuned that vibrational field to an outside source, matched it, and went there. Wow. And then navigation was retuning that, which could be done with consciousness. It could be done with just attuning to whatever energy source, whether that was a geo source given off by a planetary's magnetic system or something, or whether that was attuning to something as simple as a radio signal, or, you know, finding an abductee because of their implant. You know, I mean, I just throwing that out there. But, you know, and what they told me is they used one way out in space, and they didn't do it all in one leap, that they made leaps. They would go somewhere where they would get a strong signal and then redirect, getting a strong signal. Think of it like if you're on the cell phone, you're getting away from cell towers, you got to drive, you know, and you're driving your car, and you got to get near a cell tower to get back on signal, or get out of the canyon or whatever. It was like they kind of redirect, is what they were telling me. And then when they get to a planet like to Earth, they come in just outside of the atmosphere and then redirect where they're going from there. And that's how they explained it to me. I mean, that's just what I was shown. And but again, everything on the ship, everything is energy, everything is consciousness. You know, like I said to you on the phone before this, that's how life is. That's how Earth is. That's how everything is meant to be. It sounds so cliche, but it's so true. Everything is energy. Everything is consciousness and that it's energy. And when we say consciousness, that's just saying energy. And that energy is just the way that the atoms and the neutrons and the nucleuses and everything work together. It's on the micro level, and it's on the macro level as far as that's how planetary systems work. That's another thing the aliens explained to me in great detail. You'll understand how the ships fly and how matter works on Earth and how we make ships fly in your environment when you understand how Earth rotates in the what am I trying to say? In amongst the planets of your own solar system, and how your solar system interacts with everything else in your known universe. And when you understand those celestial mechanics and the rotation of the planets and the cycles and how it moves, that's how everything down to the micro level works. And the energy that connects all that is the same energy that propels the ship and is how you can have free energy and gravitational lift and anti-gravity and et cetera, et cetera.
Wow.
And they said when you understand that whole process, you know, how do planets float? How do solar systems float? And how do galaxies float and spin? And they said when you understand that, that's how the ships do. It's the same thing. And down to that's on a smaller scale to get down to whatever size of ship, whether you're talking giant motherships that are miles across or tiny little scout crafts or little tiny orbs that go into abductees environments. You know, it's all the same thing. But then down to the micro level, that's how matter functions all the way down.
Yeah.
And it's all held together with the energy, the quote consciousness, you know.
Wow. How many MILAB cases have you sort of worked on or, you know, studied? And are you the only one in town doing it?
The only sheriff. Well, I joked with you on the phone earlier, Dan. I'll say this for the viewers. I'm the only one kind of doing it predominantly right now by default, because there were people, and I've always said I stand on the shoulders of giants, of people who came before me doing this and encouraged me to do it. The late Carla Turner comes to mind, Helmut Lambert comes to mind. But what had happened is everyone looking into the MILAB stuff has either passed away and died, or pulled out of the field for either personal reasons, like, you know, relationships and marriages, or professional reasons. And then a lot of abductees who are MILAB cases, speaking up early on, have pulled out of the field. And I've heard a lot of people say, I just want my life back, you know, and that's common for a lot of abductees. You know, people come public a little bit in the field. It's a very tough road. Just ask Travis and Whitley how tough it can be, you know. It's a tough, tough road. And my hat's off to any abductee who's been public or decided to be public, because, you know, the ridicule, the attacks, the credibility issues, you know, it's huge. And so a lot of people over time go, okay, I'm done. I've done it for a while. I don't need this anymore. What's in this for me? And they kind of pull out. Like I said, they want their life back. And some of it's about, you know, wanting a certain career where this maybe is a factor, or risk being a factor for them, or they want a steady family life or something. And so, I mean, I know more famous abductees who were public and have pulled out of the research field and have pulled out of the spotlight than I do those that are in it now.
Wow.
Very few are in it now. And granted, some people have passed away, like the Hills or something, but they even somewhat had pulled out and pulled back before. I'm talking about Betty Barney Hill, before they passed. And so some people step back, and they're still there. I spoke, was that a year or two ago, at a conference with Debbie Jordan, you know, so she's still around, Katarina Wilson, you know, but again, they've stepped back. But getting back to your specific question, I say with the MILAB stuff, I'm kind of the last person standing. I mean, people who pulled out who are talking about this. The abductees with these experiences have either stepped back, pulled out, and unfortunately there are people that have passed away. So by default, you said, oh, you're the expert on this. I said, only by default, because I'm the last person standing.
If somebody listening has not done anything, is there any sort of place you would suggest them to go or support, or just pretend it's a one-off and it didn't happen? Or
oh God, no. Yeah, I mean, there's great support groups. I am so grateful to all the support that I've had over time. I've been very involved in recent history. Well, I'm going back now, going on almost 20 years, with Yvonne Smith and her CERO support group, Close Encounter Resource Organization. And before I moved to Sedona, Arizona, where I now live, that's the map behind me, and those pins are sightings and paranormal events in the area. Long story, and the pictures around it are same thing. And this is my office at the Center for the New Age in Sedona. And which I'm so grateful to be here and have the supporting relationship I have with them. And for those that don't know, I do a tour where I take people out with military night vision goggles, and it's a cliche in ufology to say seeing is believing, but there's nothing like having your own personal sighting. And I'm extremely grateful that we have sightings all the time on my tours, and it's letting me have some success in that way. And I'm thrilled to be able to provide that experience to people to have their own personal sighting. I've seen a lot of very skeptical people have their complete paradigm change, and it's very rewarding to witness that. But going back to, oh gosh, I got sidetracked. I'm sorry, I'm tired.
just what you would do with the experiencers if
Oh, yes, and so support groups, yes, thank you, and that's very important to help people with that. First off, you want to recall some memories without a lot of external influence. I think it's now understood in, for instance, regressive hypnosis work and everything, that they're not necessarily going to influence your memories, at least not if they're a really good trained regression therapist, and which there's quite a few in the field now, luckily. There needs to be more, but there are some. And, but you as an abductee will not trust your own recall if you've had a lot of external influence. So I always tell abductees, first work on recalling yourself, recalling your memories, do some self-investigation, journal, write what you remember, even if it's in bits and pieces. Write down your dreams if stuff comes up in your dreams. Gather and collect your evidence. Take photos if you have scoop marks and needle marks and bruises that appear overnight. You know, I just the other day discovered this guy on the internet that has been posting pictures extensively of people's physical body evidence from abductions, and it's the biggest compilation. I can't remember his name right now, but the biggest compilation of the physical effects from abduction that I've ever seen on an internet site, and he's just put picture after picture, of people's stuff. It's remarkable. But that kind of thing. So you gather your own evidence. Talk to your own witnesses. If somebody was involved, ask them, maybe record the conversation if they're willing to, at least audio record it, of their account of the event with you, and so self-investigate. And then after you start to realize, okay, I think I might be having this, I'm having the dreams, I match some of the other traits. On my website, abductee Nadine Lalich and I compiled a list of what we thought were all the best indicator traits out there. We tweaked it over a couple of years, added to it. I had a list that I'd originally developed with Misha Johnston, and she had a list, and she worked closely with Barbara Lamb for years. And so together we did some research and compiled what we thought were all the best lists into one traits list, and it's 65 traits that help someone determine if they've had an abduction. Wow. And some of the traits on there could have other other meanings, sure, but it's added with the others that they become significant. So I always tell people, if you, out of 65, if you answer yes to like 20 or less, it probably means you've had a lot of paranormal experiences, but not necessarily contact or abduction. And then if you answer yes to like 40 or more, it's highly significant and pretty much an indicator, you know. But besides something like that, once you go through that self-investigation, then recall your memories. If you're not able to recall them on your own, and some people are, some people have great recall consciously, but if you are blocked or there's a particular traumatic experience that you're blocked on, get regressive hypnosis by someone who's worked with a lot of abductees. And then after you've gotten some regressive hypnosis down and you start to recall, get in a support situation with other abductees so you realize you're not alone. And other people have been through the same thing, and other people are trying to cope with it and integrate it into their lives in the same way that you are. And I cannot recommend that enough. I've been in many support groups. Years ago, I led support groups. I did some with, oh gosh, I'll think of her name in just a second now, but I led some support groups, and Deborah Lindemann, Michael Lindemann's wife. Yeah. And we led some for a couple years. I've led them at past UFO conferences for Victoria Jack. I led support groups for, etc. And then I've been fortunate to be in many support groups, and it really, really helps if you can get in something like that on an ongoing situation. I know Yvonne Smith has Hero. I know Barbara Lamb has an ongoing support group. Unfortunately, because I was in California, my knowledge is so much West Coast based. I'm trying to get more into the Arizona and the surrounding states and that information now. I'm so lacking on the support groups and the people to go to on in the Midwest or East Coast, you know. Yeah. And but I know if you contact your local MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, most of the MUFON groups are familiar with hypnotherapists that they work with that can help regress you, and possible support groups in their area.
Wow. Okay, last question. Maybe we should promote a conference you and I are doing?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Say a few words about that. And
well, you and I are both, and I'm honored that we're kind of doing a tag team presentation where I'm doing one presentation, my own, and then Grant's going to follow me. And then I'm also doing, and you and I both are doing additional presentations at the same conference, which is UFOCon, which is in San Francisco, March. Do you know the exact dates? I think it's the 26th.
Somewhere around the 25th, 26th, 27th.
Yeah, 25th, 26th, 27th of March. You go to California, not in California, go to CAUFOCON for California UFOCon. So again, CAUFOCON.com. And that's the website, and you can find out all about it. We're not the only speakers, of course. There's an amazing list of speakers at this conference. Please go to the website, check it out, and Grant is speaking on the absolute. Well, I'll let you tell them what you're speaking on. How about that?
Well, I think we're both going to do a speech where people sometimes want to know who's behind this, who's running this, is the government involved, and you and I have both had 30 years of experience.
Yes.
Of finding people who are actually sort of the guys who are running it. Like, I mean, that were key members. Well, and so we're going to talk about that.
And I think, Grant, you're going to focus on, like, the last 5 years. Obviously, the To the Stars Academy DeLong story, yeah, and everything going on with current, you know, that media, yeah, disclosure. Okay. And then I'm going to focus on a back history behind that, how the people involved in this, and how, anyways, there's a back history to a pre-existing group interfacing, going back in 40 years of ufology, and I'm going to talk about the back history of that parent group that I feel is probably very much involved and behind some of this, and you're going to focus on the last 5 years. Yep. Both will have really jam-packed, intense, mind-blowing presentations. I'm giving all the back history. He's giving the current blow-by-blow, you know, what's going on now. Yeah. And then I'm additionally doing a talk to help people who think they may have had abductions. I was greatly inspired by attending the early presentations of researcher Bud Hopkins, the late Bud Hopkins, years ago. And my meeting Bud was one of those early things that helped me, and hearing his lectures about typical traits of abductees, typical experiences, typical types of evidence. You know, it's generic abduction 101, but as someone trying to find out what is happening with me, could this possibly be abduction? Do I match the traits? You know, I'm getting asked this constantly on my tours. I mean, I've done 852 UFO sign tours. I've done the math. I've had well over 5,000 clients. I get asked constantly, almost every tour, about abductions, and I have people constantly bringing up their own accounts, wondering if some missing time or some dream or some alien next to their bed at night was possibly abduction related. And I realize people are still, even though there's so many of us in ufology who know this subject matter and are way down the road on this, you know, there are people new to it. And there are people still trying to figure out what's going on with them and asking the basic questions. And so I thought a presentation that honored the late Bud Hopkins and got into like the presentations he used to do that helped those people like he helped me was still needed. And I ran it by Lorraine Fenton, the producer of the conference. She was extremely supportive of the idea, and I'm thrilled to be doing that kind of presentation to help people who are back at square one.
Wow. Well, I'm honored to be there speaking with you, and I'm honored that you would talk to me today. And we might do a little follow-up when we do some Q&A, because usually when I post these things, lots of people have questions. And
Sure.
we do a second session on questions that people have related to what you said today.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I could imagine, you know, even though I feel like I've been doing this research forever, I know it is new to some people, and it's not abduction 101, you know, it's not square one. This is square 1,000, you know, and when you talk about the consciousness involvement and when you talk about MILAB recruitment into covert things, I mean, you know, a lot of people go, what, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. So we'll leave it for that today.
And I'm honored to do this with you today, and I'm so honored to be speaking with you. I've respected your research for many years. You know, I think you and I knew about each other for years, and it was just this year, a couple months ago, that we really connected up and realized we've been doing each other's research. We're on the same page. And rather than, you know, I say, you say, back and forth, and also my research associate, Randy Kopang, who I worked with for years, we figured, let's all work together, because with what each of us know, we work together, it's a bigger statement. It's a bigger picture.
Yeah, and I was quite honored to find out that you had been doing sort of validated stuff. I thought I was the only one doing it, and suddenly you come along with Randy and say, oh, no, we did that too, and it's the same, you got the same answer. That really gives support to the fact that this is it's not something that you have in your head or I made up or whatever. This actually did happen.
Well, and like this whole talk today, you and I have come to learn that we're on the same page with understanding that this is about consciousness. It is about energy, and that's what the ETs are here to teach us. Wonderful.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot, Melinda. And let's do it again. If I don't do it before March, we'll see you in March. And we'll amaze the people who come there to learn what's actually going on.
Absolutely. Well, we'll blow their minds, I'm sure.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.